So you're trying to lose weight and things aren't really going well, right? Or at least you're not seeing the success that you would want to see. You're not having the results that perhaps you were expecting. And it's a bummer. Yeah, I know. And then a little bit frustrated with your situation, you go on the internet and you start looking for answers. And what do you come across? The cold realization that everything that you're doing is wrong. Whatever it is that you're doing it wrong, right? It doesn't matter, honestly, if you were trying a new exercise regimen or a new eating habit or diet or, whatever it is that you're doing it wrong. Somehow you manage to get everything wrong despite a very sincere effort to make this happen, to do it right. You continually get it wrong. And how do I know? Well, because that's me, or at least I used to think that was me. So I'm currently on a quest to lose 150 plus pounds. And it's basically what has happened to me from the very beginning. I started out with a very, what I thought was a solid plan for doing this. And the moment you start trying to do something, and something as elusive as losing weight, there seemed to be like no shortage of people telling you that whatever it is that you're doing, somehow you're doing it wrong, right? And if you're on a similar path, if you're trying to get healthier or lose weight, it's particularly specific with losing weight. People love to have an opinion about your weight loss. I just think that's interesting because losing weight is such a personal journey, it's such a personal thing. And that's not really to say that anyone who's telling you that you're doing it wrong is ill-intentioned or they want to be mean on purpose. I think for the most part, people are well-intentioned and they want to see you succeed and they want to cooperate. But somehow it always happens to be that the one thing that you're doing it wrong. And of course, because for whatever reason, we're not seeing the results that we want and we're insecure about this, this ends up rocking our world, right? We thought that we were standing on such solid ground with whatever it is that we were trying to do or what we had decided to do, and then somebody else comes in and challenges that notion, and all of a sudden you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? Because apparently eating apples is bad. What happened to the 1 apple a day thing? And unfortunately, this is the reality for those of us who are trying to shed those extra pounds. And so why is it that this happens? Why is it that this situation seems to happen over and over and over again? Because if you're anything like me, then you'll probably, this will have happened to you in the past. And somehow, you start with something, then somebody challenges that, and then you start questioning yourself, and you get a little insecure and think, well, maybe they're right, maybe I shouldn't. And then you change everything, and you're still not seeing the results, and then somebody else comes and challenges that notion, and it just becomes this cycle where you're going over and over and over and over again. 15 rounds, more, 25 rounds. And so I think that, at least in my experience, like I said, since I started this quest, I've received a lot of advice. So I wanted to lose weight. I wanted some, not that I just wanted to, I needed to, as we all do, especially when we get into our 30s and 40s, that it becomes more of a medical thing. Your health is at risk, right? My health is at risk. And so I'm trying to do this, and I wanted some accountability, so I created this channel. And I get a lot of comments. And again, most people who are giving that advice are well-intentioned, Really, I would say like 98% of people who are trying to give advice are very well-intentioned. But the problem is that everyone is so different. Everyone is so unique. Our biology is so different from one another. And yes, we have so many similarities, and for the most part, everything works in the same general way. But, the devil is in the details. And what works for one person really doesn't work for everyone else. It could, but it could also not. And so, as the science progresses on health and weight loss and, all this stuff, there's more and more evidence that supports that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. And so, I was recently reading a study, I can't really remember where it came from, but it was fascinating to think about the idea that sometimes you'll see like someone interviewing, someone who just turned 100 or, anyone over 100 basically. And there always seem to be these anecdotes of like, what's your secret to, living, to be over 100? They'll say like bacon, fat, and whiskey. And you go like, what the fuck? And that probably is true for them. Bacon and whiskey. It's just like that. Who knew? That's the secret to longevity and health. And so, we go on a bacon and whiskey diet and we die within 3 years. And so there are so many aspects that play into someone's health. And this particular study that I was reading about specifically was talking about the effects of your genetics and how long you live, right? And so basically that person that lived to be 100 by, eating bacon and whiskey, probably ended up living to 100 despite the fact that they were living on a diet of bacon and whiskey. They were predisposed, if you will, to make it to, 100. And if we tried to do the same, maybe we don't have that gene that is going to help us get to 100. If we try to do that, the effects would be extremely different. And so, what do we do with that? And I think that most people who are trying to give us advice or share their opinion about what has worked for them, most of them are genuinely trying to be helpful and to give you a hand. But it doesn't necessarily always work. And so, or at least it doesn't work for us. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. It doesn't necessarily work for us, because we are different. And it might work, but it might not. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean that we're somehow doing it wrong because a certain approach isn't working for us. Maybe we're not the ones who are failing. The system is failing us. We just maybe need to try a different system. And so, for me, it has been interesting to learn that over these last 100+ days that I've been doing this, in a more concerted, more conscious effort to become healthier by losing some weight. And so, there's always going to be a lot of doubt. There's always going to be a lot of insecurity because we're still trying to make it happen. Nothing is proven yet for us. We haven't had, I guess, the success that we want. The system hasn't been proven. The approach that we're taking hasn't been proven. And so we don't know if it's going to work. And because we have that insecurity, that uncertainty, the self-doubt arises, and it leaves us in a very vulnerable place where we can be very suggestible. Is that the word? Is that a word? Suggestible. We can be very suggestive. Anyway. And that just, it makes it difficult to know, like, what it is that we're doing. Are we doing it right? And so I have tried to always be open to anyone's suggestion. I think that's an important position to take, to be open to people's suggestions. And then at the same time, take it with a grain of salt, In a lot of ways, we have to be willing to experiment a little bit, but also be almost like weight loss scientists, for ourselves. Because again, there's a lot of data out there, there's a lot of contradicting opinions, there's so many different kinds of diets, and there's not going to be a single way that works for everybody, nor necessarily a single way that works for a single person. You could lose weight. We could do this in a bunch of different ways. And it doesn't mean that one approach is necessarily better than the other. There might be something that works a little bit better for you, but we're not really going to know that until we start experimenting and be open to different ideas. And then at the same time, take it with a grain of salt, because we just don't know. There are things, I guess, that we can right off the bat go like pass. It's like, if you do nothing but blow for 3 months, dude. Yeah, that's clearly not going to be a healthy way of doing this. But but for the most part, there are going to be things that can work, multiple things that can work. And so my approach for these last 100 days has been to be open, but then at the same time, I guess, I was going to say have a little more confidence, but that confidence comes from having a little bit more knowledge, having a little bit more wisdom from having tried different things, because it is very easy for that confidence to get shaken up when we really don't feel like we know what we're doing. And that happens so much because there's so much information and it's so contradicting. One day in one article, you'll hear something about the benefits of, insert food here. And the next day you'll hear about how that particular food is destroying your metabolism. And so it is unfortunate that there is so much information, so much contradicting information out there, and that it is difficult to know like what's what. So a certain approach that I have, or not approach, I guess, like I was saying, my approach is to be open and to try to be open to the information that I'm receiving, but also taking it with a bit of a grain of salt and making sure that I am filtering everything through a lens of what could benefit me and how I might feel about it. And so, to me, it has been important to recognize that, one, we're all different, and my approach to this is going to be different from someone else, but also open to the fact that they might have, something to contribute that I could incorporate, partially or in whole, into my approach to doing this. But then also to be a little skeptical of everything and maybe do a little bit more research before jumping onto something. And so in general, the idea is to have a more mindful approach to doing this. Having a little more mindfulness when it comes to the things that we're deciding to do. And maybe trying to make sure that we're not just following something mindlessly because somebody was telling us that perhaps we should, and it requires a lot of patience. At least for me, it has required quite a bit of patience because things don't necessarily happen the way that we want. And especially if we're making any meaningful changes that are going to last, they're probably going to take a little bit longer. And so in that way, it requires quite a bit of patience. And oftentimes you're not going to know if what you're trying to do is working. And it just requires a little bit of patience and let it run its course and see if perhaps you can gather enough data to make a more educated conclusion. Yeah, I guess a more educated conclusion that this is something that perhaps is going in a specific, in a positive direction, I guess, is more important. And so for me, that has been important, to be open and then at the same time remain a little skeptical of everyone's suggestions, because people have a lot of suggestions. And it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes to receive that much input and then at the end of the day not know what to do about it. And then you all sort of get paralyzed because you don't know what to do with this all information, how to incorporate it, how to use it. And so we have to take it one step at a time and see what is working for us. And try to incorporate other ways to know that perhaps you're making the right kind of progress. So obviously the scale is one of them. But my only problem with the scale is that it can be a little bit misleading, because the scale is only one data point, right? You're only measuring your actual weight. And yes, we are trying to lose weight, but trying to lose weight by any means necessary should not be the goal, obviously. We want to become healthier, and then because we're becoming healthier, we're losing weight. We're getting to a healthier weight. But it is because we are becoming healthier. We don't want to become unhealthier in the process of losing weight. And so there are other ways in which you can measure your progress. I think that the idea of measuring weight in combination with some sort of measurement of your body is a good one, because there are going to be, at least it's going to give you two different data points. How heavy you are in measuring everything, but then also if you're taking your physical measurements, like your belly and your hips and your arms, are they getting a little bit smaller? And so that can be another way of thinking about this, of thinking about the idea that we can measure progress in different ways so that it can give us a little more confidence that perhaps what we're doing is working, even if someone very adamantly thinks that somehow we're doing things wrong. Of course, there are other ways that are a little more involved, like talking to your healthcare professional, and they might want to do blood work and some other medical tests that are always important, and we should be doing it with some regularity, obviously. But that's sort of one of the things that has worked for me in terms of combating the uncertainty and the insecurity that comes from having whatever it is that you're doing to try to get healthier challenged by sometimes strangers on the internet, or even, people around you. And, of course, there are certain maxims, I guess, certain universal truths that the more I sort of think about this and read about this and learn about this stuff, that sort of come to the front. And they're going to be so obvious that they're going to sound silly, but basically, nutrition is extremely important. And it's not necessarily a specific kind of nutrition, one diet versus another, but nutrition in general. Having foods that have plenty of nutrients is important. Exercise is important, and not necessarily for weight loss in general, but in general for general health. And the healthier we are, the healthier we become, the better our bodies work, and that will help with weight loss and health. And exercise plays a very crucial role into it. And sleep. Sleep is so important. And for so long, I feel like I neglected my sleep. And so these are things that I've started to focus on, some of the more general aspects of this, of not just trying to lose weight, but trying to become healthier. And that way, we can gauge a little bit better if a certain approach that we're having actually works. If somebody is suggesting something that we can incorporate into our routine, into our habits, into the things that we're doing, if it works or not, and it's tricky to know, there's not full objectivity in this. The body is a very complex thing, and metabolism and weight loss are very complex. And so that's why it's important to sort of become little scientists and test different things out. Because they have to work not only physically, but they have to work emotionally, psychologically. We need to be able to get on board. And so a specific type of exercise or diet or something would physically, technically work extremely well for you, but if it wrecks your mental health, if you feel terrible, it's just not going to happen. And so we need to be mindful of making sure that we are incorporating things into our approach, into our quest to become healthier, to lose weight, that will work both physically and mentally, emotionally, psychologically, because otherwise it's going to be extremely difficult and it's going to be miserable. And if we're extremely miserable, it just doesn't work, And I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still going through the motions, up and down. It's not easy, and it's going to take some work, but that's why we're here, and that's why we're doing this. And one of the ways that I'm able to keep going, and not abandon this quest, as it has happened in the past many times for me, and I'm sure it's happened to you where we abandon this and, all hell breaks loose. And this is when we put on the bulk of our weight. Because if we manage to lose a little bit, then we put on the extra weight and more, put on the weight back and then some more. And the best way that I've been able to do this is by doing this and having you guys and having a community, starting to build a community that can be supportive and non-judgmental. Because in the moments when, whatever approach that we're doing, it's criticized or it's undermined and someone's telling us that it's at that moment that we feel like dropping everything and say, well, fuck, this is costing me so much. It's taking such a toll on me that, now I don't know what to do. And so being able to have a community where I can express those insecurities and those frustrations, those uncertainties, has been extremely important. And so having a community around you where you're not going to be judged and no one's going to try to impose their ideas, on you is so important. And this is what I have started to find here. So if perhaps you're struggling and motorcycle, it's a loud motorcycle, and then another one. It's so annoying. I'm not a big motorcycle person, but the loud ones kind of bug me. So if if you think that you could use some of that support, this is why I'm here. This is why we're here. You can share your frustrations with us, and we'll take it from there. And in case you're interested, I'm also on a quest to lose 150 plus pounds. I am currently in a sort of quest within the quest, where I'm trying to get to 200 pounds by July of next year, which is my 40th birthday. So I'm trying to use different ways to motivate myself and to make this happen in a way that embraces the real world, that embraces reality, that embraces the ups and downs, and see what happens, see where we go from here. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.